with all of you. So today we are going to discuss the last chapter in this section of Nārada Muni, Pracetās, King Prachina Barhishat, and so on. So I'll do a very quick recap. It won't be very detailed, but we see how in the beginning King Prachina Barhishat has these 10 sons called the Pracetās. And they go, the initial chapters described how they go to perform austerities and they receive this mantra from stotra from Lord Shiva, and they perform austerities and chant that stotra for many years. And then the focus shifts to the kingdom of King Prachina Barishat, where he is engaged in karma kandi activities, sense gratificatory activities as the king. And Narad Muni, out of his causeless mercy, comes and preaches to King Prachina Barishat. And there he talks about the allegorical story in quite a depth, actually, in great depth, about the personality called Puranjan. It's an allegorical story, so he's not like a real personality, but then that is to bring Prachina Barishat out of his complacency about spiritual life. So that was Narad Muni's causeless mercy in doing so. So then he speaks in great detail about that allegory. And then after that, King Prachina Barishat asks more questions. And then Narad Muni answers those questions, and he raises Prachina Barishat's consciousness to the lotus feet of Krishna and to Bhakti Yoga and whatnot. And then finally, we see that purified by the words emanating from Narad Muni's Vani, he leaves the kingdom and goes to perform austerities and perfect his life in the forest. And then the focus now shifts back to the Pracetās. And then the Pracetās, they've been very wonderfully performing these austerities under the water for many, many years, thousands of years, and being pleased by their austerity. Apparently, by their austerity, one would say, Lord Vishnu appeared. But then the first thing that Lord Vishnu says to them is Varam Rinidvam Vadram Vo Yuyam Me Nripanandana Sauhardena Pritak Dharma Tushtoham Saurdena Vaha. So he says that I am very pleased by the friendly relationships amongst all of you, and therefore I've appeared. That this has satisfied me a lot. So Lord Vishnu is saying to these Pracetās, which brings out a very big lesson that whatever austerities we may do, whatever spiritual practice also that we may do, it needs to get translated into loving relationship among devotees, because Krishna, he is Aradhananam Sarvesham Vishnu Aradhanam Param. Krishna says that, Vishnu says, yes, worshipping me is okay, but worshipping my devotee is, more dear to me. So one who worships my devotee, they are more dear to me. And there are many such instances where Vishnu, Krishna, they are saying these things. So that was that last chapter where then Vishnu offers them benedictions, and then later on Vishnu goes back, and then the Pracetās, then they begin ruling the kingdom. They go back to their kingdom, and now their father has already left to perfect his life, and he has given instructions to the ministers to as to how to proceed with the kingdom, and what to do when his sons come back and whatnot. So then the Pracetās go back and they rule the kingdom for many, many thousands of years. And then that brings us to today's chapter, where the Pracetās they have now completed their family responsibility, their responsibility as Kshatriyas, as kings, and now they want to reach the final destination of perfection in Krishna consciousness. And therefore they go to the forest again to perform austerities, and to a very specific place that we'll see in this chapter. And yeah, that's what the quick summary was, and then we'll get deeper into this chapter. And yes, this is the final chapter. After this, this is where we complete this particular section. And interestingly, with this chapter, we also complete the entire fourth canto, if I remember correctly, because we've covered Dhruv Maharaj pastime, we've covered what is that after Dhruv Maharaj? Prithu Maharaj pastime, and then we also covered now the Pracheta pastime. So yeah, wherever you all are, after this class, you can give yourselves a pat on the back that you all have completed studying the fourth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. But anyway, without further ado, let's get into the chapter. There are 31 verses, so let's have three devotees, 10, 10, 11. So yeah, who wants to go first? Let me, oh, where is my Zoom? Oh, here it is. Okay, yeah. Anyone wants to go? I can
Can you
start.
zoom in, Prabhuji? Can you zoom in because my eyesight
Oh,
and
sure, sure.
I'll read. I'll read first time.
This is good.
Yes, Prabhu. Perfect. The great saint Maitreya continued. After that, the Prachetas lived at home for thousands of years and developed perfect knowledge in spiritual consciousness. At last, they remembered the blessings of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and left home, putting their wife in charge of a perfect son. The Prachetas went to the seashore in the west, where the great liberated Jajali was residing. After perfecting the spiritual knowledge by which one becomes equal towards all living entities, the Prachetas became perfect in Krishna consciousness. After practicing the Yogasana for mystic yoga, the Prachetas managed to control their life air, mind, words, and external vision. Thus, by the pranayama process, they were completely relieved of material attachment. By remaining perpendicular, they could concentrate their minds on the uppermost Brahman. While they were practicing this pranayam, the great sage Nārada, who is worshipped both by demons and by demigods, came to see them. As soon as the Prachetas saw the great sage Nārada had appeared, they immediately got up even from their asanas. As required, they immediately offered obeisances and worshipped him. And when they saw that Narada Muni was properly seated, they began to ask him questions. All the Prachetas began to address the great sage Narada. O great sage, O Brahmana, we hope you met with no disturbances while coming here. It is due to our great fortune that we are now able to see you. By the traveling of the sun, people are relieved from the fear of the darkness of night, a fear brought about by thieves and rogues. Similarly, your traveling is like the sun's, for you drive away all kinds of fear. O Master, may we inform you that because of our being overly attached to family affairs, we almost forgot the instructions we received from Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu. Dear Master, kindly enlighten us in transcendental knowledge. May we act as a torchlight by which we may cross the dark nescience of material existence. The great Maitreya continued, My dear Vidura, being thus petitioned by the Prachetas, the supreme devotee Nārada, who is always absorbed in thoughts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, began to reply. The great sage Nārada said, when a living entity is born to engage in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the Supreme Controller, his birth, all his fruitive activities, his lifespan, his mind, and his words are all factually perfect. A civilized human being has three kinds of births. The first birth is by a pure father and mother, and this birth is called birth by semen. This next birth takes place when one is initiated by the spiritual master, and this birth is called Savitra. The third birth, called Yagnika, takes place when one is given the opportunity to worship Lord Vishnu. Despite the opportunities to attain, despite the opportunities for attaining such births, even if one gets the lifespan of a demigod, if one does not actually engage in the service of the Lord, everything is useless. Similarly, one's activities may be mundane or spiritual, but they are useless if they are not meant for satisfying the Lord.
Thank you, Prabhu. Without devotional service, what is the meaning of severe austerities, the process of hearing, the power of speech, the power of mental speculation, elevated intelligence, strength, and the power of the senses? Transcendental practices that do not ultimately help one realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead are useless, be they mystic yoga practices, the analytical study of matter, severe austerity, the acceptance of sannyas, or the study of Vedic literature. All these may be very important aspects of spiritual advancement, but unless one understands the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, all these processes are useless. Factually, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the original source of all self realization. Consequently, the goal of all auspicious activities, karma, jnana, yoga, and bhakti, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As pouring water on the root of a tree energizes the trunk, branches, twigs, and everything else, and as supplying food to the stomach enlivens the senses and limbs of the body, simply worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead through devotional service automatically satisfies the demigods who are parts of that Supreme Personality. During the rainy season, water is generated from the sun, and in due course of time, during the summer season, the very same water is again absorbed by the sun. Similarly, all living entities, moving and inert, are generated from the earth, and again, after some time, they all return to the earth as dust. Similarly, everything emanates from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and in due course of time, everything enters into Him again. Just as sunshine is non different from the sun, the cosmic manifestation is also non different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Personality is therefore all pervasive within this material creation. When the senses are active, they appear to be part and parcel of the body. But when the body is asleep, their activities are unmanifest. Similarly, the whole cosmic creation appears different and yet non different from the Supreme Person. My dear kings, sometimes in the sky there are clouds, sometimes there is darkness, sometimes there is illumination. The appearance of all these takes place consecutively. Similarly, in the Supreme Absolute, the modes of passion, darkness, and ignorance appear as consecutive energies. Sometimes they appear and sometimes they disappear. Because the Supreme Lord is the cause of all causes, he is the super soul of all living, individual living entities, and he exists as both the remote and immediate cause. Since he is aloof from the material emanations, he is free from their interactions and is the Lord of material nature. You should therefore engage in his devotional service, thinking yourself qualitatively one with him. By showing mercy to all living entities, being satisfied somehow or the other, and restricting the senses from sense enjoyment, one can very quickly satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Janardhan. Being completely cleansed of all material desires, the devotees are freed from all mental contamination. Thus, they can always think of the Lord constantly and address Him very feelingly. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, knowing Himself to be controlled by His devotees, does not leave them for a second, just as the sky overhead never becomes invisible. Yes, Vishal Prabhu, you can complete the chapter.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes very dear to those devotees who have no material possessions but are fully happy in possessing the devotional service of the Lord. Indeed, the Lord relishes the devotional activities of such devotees. Those who are puffed up with material education, wealth, aristocracy, and primitive activity are very proud of possessing material things, and they often deride the devotees. Even if such people offer the Lord worship, the Lord never accepts them. Although the Supreme Personality of Godhead is self sufficient, he becomes dependent on his devotees. He does not care for the goddess of fortune, nor for the kings and demigods who are after the favors of the goddess of fortune. Where is that person who is actually grateful and will not worship the personality of Godhead? The great sage Maitreya continued, my dear King Vidura, Sri Narad Muni, the son of Lord Brahma, thus described all these relationships with the Supreme Personality of Godhead to the Pracetās. Afterward, he returned to Brahmaloka. Hearing from Narada's mouth the glories of the Lord, which vanquish all the ill fortune of the world, the Prachetas also became attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Meditating on his lotus feet, they advanced to the ultimate destination. My dear Vidura, I have told you everything you wanted to know about the conversation between Narada and the Prachetas, the conversation describing the glories of the Lord. I have related this as far as possible. Shukadev Goswami continued, O best of kings, King Parikshit, I have now finished telling all the descendants of the first son of Swayambhuva Manu, Uttanapad. I shall now try to relate the activities of the descendants of Priyavrata, the second son of Swayambhuva Manu. Please hear them attentively. Although Maharaj Priyavrata received instructions from the great sage Narada, he still engaged in ruling the earth. After fully enjoying material possessions, he divided his property among his sons. He then attained a position by which he could return home, back to Godhead. My dear king, in this way, after hearing the transcendental messages of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his devotees from the great sage Maitreya, Vidura was overwhelmed with ecstasy. With tears in his eyes, he immediately fell down at the lotus feet of his guru, his spiritual master. He then fixed the Supreme Personality of Godhead within the core of his heart. Sri Vidura said, O great mystic, O greatest of all devotees, by your causeless mercy, I have been shown the path of liberation from this world of darkness. By following this path, a person liberated from the material world can return home back to Godhead. Shukadev Goswami continued, Vidura thus offered obeisances unto the great sage Maitreya and taking his permission, started for the city of Hastinapur to see his own kinsman, although he had no material desires. O king, those who hear these topics about kings who were completely surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead obtain without difficulty a long life, wealth, good reputation, good fortune, and ultimately the opportunity to return home back to Godhead. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, Gaurakumar Prabhu, Vishal Prabhu. Yes, so Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshuruन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नामिने गौरत्विषे नमः हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकाकांत राधाकांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवास आदि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघायते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारणम् So yes, it's a very beautiful chapter. Narad Muni is instructing the Prachetas. And yeah, many nice lessons come out from the purports in this chapter. We'll focus on two very two verses which are well known, but one of them is like particularly well known, not just within Vaishnava circles, but even outside Vaishnava circles. So that Yatha Taror Mula Nishechanena. We'll look at the two verses. But before we get into that, I just had like a breakup of the chapter. So this is the 31st chapter, and the first three verses in this chapter talk about Praceta's life, how they ruled for many years, and finally they retired to perform tapasya in the forest where one sage called Jajali had attained liberation. So they went there to perform austerities because it was an auspicious place. And it is described how they attained the Brahmabhuta stage by their austerity, by their pranayam, by their dhyana yoga, ashtanga yoga. And when that happens, Narad Muni appears there, and he appears there again out of his causeless mercy. And then the Prachetas immediately, as soon as they see Narad Muni, they get up from their asanas. I was just, when this section was being read, I was thinking about Roma Harshan Sutta. So when he was also on the Vyasasan, and when Lord Balaram came, he didn't do anything, he ignored. So yeah, I was, in contrast to that, I was thinking how Narad Muni, when he appears here, the Prachetas, they get out from their asanas and they offer obeisances to Narad Muni. They give him a suitable place to sit and things like that. And then they start questioning him. They say out of humility that they have forgotten all the instructions given to them by Lord Vishnu, by Lord Shiva, before they are Grihasthashram. And therefore they request Narad Muni to enlighten them on spiritual life. And then the next section from 9 to 22 is the biggest section in this chapter, where Narad Muni speaks out divine instructions for them. And his instructions consist, we'll go deeper into these instructions also. But he speaks about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, about the glories of bhakti, and and whatnot. And then finally, the last eight verses speak about the conclusion of this pastime. And in Vidura now he's in ecstasy, having heard this from his guru Maitreya. He's in ecstasy, and he's thanking his guru for such a nice narration, such nice instructions of the Narad Muni in this story. And then finally there is the Falashruti also, and we also see that technical informational part where Parikshit Maharaj is telling, Shukdev Goswami is telling Parikshit Maharaj that till now was the description of the lineage of the first son of Swayambhuva Manu, who is Uttanpad. Uttanpad happens to be Dhruva Maharaj's father. So this entire fourth canto, if you look at it, it's dedicated to Uttanpad's descendants. So Dhruva, then Prithu, then now we have the Prachetas. So, and then finally there is the Falashruti of this chapter also, that if we hear this such narrations about these devotee kings and their activities, then we'll also be blessed with devotional service and whatnot. There are other things like prosperity, reputation, and whatnot. So that is the rough breakup of the chapter. And then within Narad Muni's instructions, again, there is a breakup kind of. So the first four verses, actually 5 verses, they talk about the position of karma, jnana, and yoga in relation to bhakti. So this is often talked about how bhakti is like the elevator, and karma yoga, jnana yoga, and ashtanga yoga, dhyana yoga, they are like the staircase to get to the supreme perfection. And then a lot of things are spoken about in this, in the to the tune of, you do as much karma as you want, you do as much, you gather as much knowledge as you want, you perform all kinds of austerities, but if all of this doesn't lead to bhakti yoga, then what is the use of it, is what Narad Muni is telling the Prachetas. There is this verse also in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Dharmasvanushtita pumsam vishwaksena katha suyah na utpadayed yadi ratim shrama evahi kevalam. So here, there again, the Dharmasvanushtita pumsam. Whatever dharma, occupational duty we have, that falls in the purview of karma here. Whatever there is, if that doesn't lead to bhakti yoga, then it is shrama eva hi kevalam. So it is just useless labor, is what Bhagavatam says. Again, strong words. And similarly with Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga, Krishna says in the Gita, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatva na shochati na kankshati yaha sarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labate param. So this Jnana Yoga, the position of equanimity, the no, na shochati na kankshati. There is no lamentation, there is no desire. That is the perfection of Jnana Yoga. It's called Brahma Bhuta stage. Now, when you're in the Brahma Bhuta stage, Krishna says, what do you do? Mad bhaktim lavate, param, you worship me. So in this way, even jnana is successful as long as it leads to bhakti. And same with yoga as well. In Ashtanga Yoga, the graduation to bhakti is I guess it's very easy in the sense that because the perfection of Dhyana Yoga is to realize the Paramatma in our heart. And when we realize the Paramatma in our heart, there is a personal connection that is established immediately. So, and it's very easy for one to graduate to Bhakti Yoga from that position. That's what in Krishna also describes in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Yoga Mishra Bhakti, where the practitioner of yoga realizes the Paramatma within one's heart. So that was the first 5 verses of this section, and then after that, this is that verse 9:31:14. Yatha taror mula nishechanena. We'll go into detail about this verse. So this verse essentially says that just like by watering the root of a tree, all the branches, twigs, and leaves, etc., are nourished, and just by feeding the food to the stomach, all the parts of the body are nourished. Like that, by worshipping Krishna, who is the source of everything, who is the root cause of the whole cosmic manifestation, Sarva Karana Karanam. By worshipping Krishna, by loving Krishna, by satisfying Krishna, we will have satisfied all the demigods, is what Narad Muni says. And then finally, Narad Muni talks about glories of Krishna, how this section is a little technical. He talks about the Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva, that Krishna is, he is in the world, but he's aloof from the world, and things like that. So these are technical verses where Narad Muni talks about the glories of Krishna, how he engages with the world. And then after that, he talks about, this is again a very nice verse that I heard a small clip by Gaurang Darshan Prabhu where he quotes this verse. The 3 aspects of a devotee's consciousness that please Krishna a lot, that satisfy Krishna a lot. And then finally, the last 3 verses are the glories of bhakti and the bhakta. And it is mentioned that they conquer the Lord. They conquer the devotee, the pure devotee, whose life and soul is the service of Krishna, service to Krishna, loving service to Krishna. That devotee is actually, he's conquering the Lord. The Lord says in the 9th canto, Aham bhakta paradhino yha asvatantra iva dvija sadhu virgrasta hridayo bhaktair bhakta janapriya. So the Lord says that, Aham bhakta paradhina. I am a paradhina of my bhakta. I am conquered by the love of my devotee. Ya aswatantra ivadvija. It is as if I am aswatantra. It is as if I am, I am becoming dependent. My independence is gone. Swatantra is independence, and aswatantra is independence gone. So the Lord is saying, this is a very nice verse actually. He's Swarat, he is supremely independent. And this supremely independent Lord is saying that I am completely conquered by my devotee, and it is as if I don't have any independence. So very interesting how love conquers the Lord. And then, so this section 20 to 22 talks about that aspect, how bhakti and the bhakta, they conquer the Lord. And there is an exchange. And then finally, Narad Muni concludes his instructions by saying that who will not, worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead in devotional service like that. So anyway, this is like a rough breakdown of the chapter. And then this is that 14th verse in this chapter, very famous verse. I'll recite this verse and then we'll read the translation as well, and then we'll discuss. Yatha tarormula nishechanena trupyanti tatskanda bhujo pashakha pranopaharach chayathendriyanam tathaiva sarvarhanamachyutejya. As pouring water on the root of a tree energizes the trunk, branches, twigs, and everything else, and as supplying food to the stomach enlivens the senses and limbs of the body, simply worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead through devotional service automatically satisfies the demigods who are parts of that Supreme Personality. So, yathatoror moola nishechanena tripyanti tat skanda, that is trunk, bhuja, branches, and upashakha, those are the twigs. Pranopaharach yatendriyanam tathaiva. So again, this is where the limbs of the body, feeding food to the stomach, enlivens the senses and the limbs of the body. Like that, worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead satisfies all the demigods who are parts of that Supreme Personality. Now, again, this is the root of a tree is not visible. It's not the visible part of the tree. The visible parts of the tree are the branches, twigs, and trunk, leaves, etc., etc. Yet, when we offer water to the invisible part of the tree, that is the root, which is under the ground, that is when all these visible parts become nourished. So similarly, Gaurang Darshan Prabhu explains in the verse that Krishna is also not so obviously visible in the world. Of course, if one is very thoughtful, then one realizes that there is some Supreme Personality behind the universe. Prabhupada writes in the first canto that a sane man actually, if he just observes the world with humility, then a sane man can come to the conclusion that there is a Supreme Person behind all this. So very interesting what Prabhupada writes. But anyway, Krishna also says in the Gita, Mattha parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya mai sarvam idam protam sutre manigana iva. So Krishna says that I am like that thread, that there in a necklace, the pearls are strung with a thread. The thread is not directly visible. The pearls are what are visible. But then the thread is actually holding everything together. Similarly, Krishna is that Supreme Personality who may not be very obviously visible to the naked eye. And but then when we worship Krishna, that is when all the other obligations that we may have to the demigods, etc., they become we don't have to worship them, is what this verse says. Now, this verse is often okay. I'll not get into the misinterpretation of this verse, but let's get into the discussion part here. So, does one really satisfy everyone by satisfying the Supreme Lord? Is the question, right? So, or does one need to sometimes separately endeavor to satisfy others? I'm missing an S there, but I'll correct that. So, in practical life, for example, right? When I came into bhakti, there was one particular restaurant that my dad and I would go, and we would very nicely enjoy and eat, and he would love to take me there. Every time I would go back home from Pune, we would go there and eat. So then after I got connected to devotees, after I got connected to Bhakti Yoga, then I couldn't eat there because they didn't have whatever the dietary restrictions that we follow. And then my dad would come and ask me, come, let's go there, right? Let's eat there. Then I would say no. And then one time I remember he said, what have you done? You've just given up everything, and you're not enjoying the same things that you used to enjoy before. So it was not very pleasing to him that I was practicing bhakti yoga, right? That is one example. Or, this second question, do we need to separately endeavor to satisfy others, right? So, like for example, married couples, right? Few of us here are married, and then we need to. It's not that every one of us is at the level where, okay, just by sitting and performing bhakti yoga sadhana, we will have satisfied each other. No, it does not. Often it does not work that way. In very rare cases it does, is what my understanding is, but often it does not. We may have to separately endeavor to connect with the other person. We may have to separately endeavor to do certain activities which are common activities, which we both which both the people in the relationship they like to do. And this is not just between couples, but even any relationship for that matter. Even among devotee friends, right? We may have to separately endeavor in some ways to form that connection. Of course, within Vaishnavas, it is all in the precincts of bhakti, and by trying to connect to a devotee, actually, that is actually bhakti yoga. That is not different from bhakti yoga. But then are other friendships, right? Like, I can't say that by practicing bhakti yoga, I will have satisfied my boss to give me a promotion. No, I have to separately endeavor for it, right? So what does this really mean is what I want to open up to others. What does it really mean that by satisfying Krishna, everybody will be satisfied, right? Any thoughts here? There is this story in Mahabharata where most of you will know this. So the Pandavas are in the forest in their exile, and then one day, this Duryodhan was a cunning fellow. So he knew that these people are in the forest and they don't have many supplies and they are living a life of austerity and everything. So this Duryodhan, what he does is Durvas Muni happens to visit the kingdom, and then he tells this Durvas Muni, "Arey, these Pandavas, they are in the forest. You should go and enlighten them or whatnot." So then this Durvas Muni says, "Sure, I'll go." And then Durvas Muni is not alone here. He has like 10,000 disciples with him. So all of them, they go to the forest hermitage of these Pandavas where they are living. And then there he says, now when a sage of the caliber of Durvas Muni visits for lunch prasadam, you can't say no to them. You have to cook. But then they reach a little late. They reach that place a little late, and then till then um, Draupadi, whatever she had cooked, was already consumed by everyone there. So she couldn't again cook, right? There is a story related to that. I forget what that story is, but anyway, she could not cook again. And then now these Durvas Muni and these Brahmanas, they are here. Now what to do? So then Krishna comes there, and Krishna gives them an idea that you just send them to the river to have a bath and come back, and then till then we'll manage something. So then Yudhishthir Maharaj tells Durvas Muni like that, and Durvas Muni, accompanied by all his 10,000 disciples, they go to the river to have a bath. And then there is some prasadam left from what was cooked, and Krishna says, "I'll have that prasadam." And then Draupadi very lovingly gives that to Krishna. Krishna eats that. And when Krishna eats that, suddenly these Durvas Muni and his disciples, they suddenly feel their stomach to be extremely heavy. Like it's as if they are full. They've filled up their stomach up to the brim. And then now they don't even want to eat anything. So they just run away from there. So this story is often quoted to convey this concept that how by worshipping Krishna, everybody is satisfied, right? By Draupadi giving that little prasadam to Krishna, and he was satisfied with it because of the love. These Narad Muni and Brahmanas also became full, and then they left. So yeah, anyway, coming back to our question here, right? Does one really satisfy everyone by satisfying the Supreme Lord? Or does one need to sometimes separately endeavor to satisfy others? Yes, any thoughts?
I'll go. I'm not fully processed it, but I'll just go. So I guess it's trying to. It's not like one or the other. In my mind, in my opinion, it's not like, okay, on one side, okay, because now that we become devotees, we just pray to Krishna and then automatically everything is done. That is one side. Then the other side of the pendulum is, um, I'll just keep doing everything, and as usual, like, not believing in that fact that, watering the root, right? And in between is trying to find that balance. Sometimes we need to fine tune. Sometimes, so I guess the spirit of this, in my opinion, my understanding, is that it's not really that we only do devotional activities and then everything will magically automatically work. It is like seeing kind of Krishna in everything. So, if we, let's say, in your case, you mentioned about your dad. If we understand the other person's, the other person also has, Krishna is in that person also. Krishna is was in your dad's, as Paramatma. And then how do we satisfy them? How do we satisfy that person's needs? Um, while doing that activity also, we can, like you can say, okay, it's okay for the satisfaction of the other person. But then when the other person sees that you're willing to give up your core principles just for their love, then that also is a transformation. And Krishna within their heart will inspire them to, that is just my understanding. But it's at the same time, it's not that we use that every time and then as an excuse, and then we break all the principles and go out of the way. It's not like that. It's a fine balance. Sometimes we have to fine tune it, sometimes we have to stand by it. Yeah, it's on a case by case basis. But pretty much just being aware that the watering the root in my mind is that seeing Krishna in everybody, seeing Krishna in everything. But if you just do it as a mundane, then it remains mundane.
Got it, Mataji.
Even with devotee relationships. That's I just from the top of my head. Yeah, sorry. I have not processed.
No. I don't know why you said you haven't processed. I mean, you spoke so nicely. That's beautiful. Yes, definitely, Mataji. It is, we see Krishna in everything. And like what you mentioned reminds me of that principle of concept and like the concept of principle and application. So there is a principle, and then how that principle applies will differ in different situations. And then it's up to the genuineness and sincerity of the practitioner to decide how that principle applies. So yes, here also, as you mentioned, it's not one or the other. That was a very beautiful point. It's not one or the other. You do everything you engage with everyone with the consciousness that, okay, this person is a part and parcel of Krishna. And that way you can
Yeah.
be true to the spirit of this.
And you're watering that root that is there in their heart. Yeah, I guess we can say that.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
Beautiful, Mataji. Thank you. Any other thoughts on this, dear devotees? Mataji kind of summarized everything very nicely, but yeah, if there is anything else, yeah, anyone? Okay. Continuing in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So, so I was contemplating on this, and based on what I've heard, right, what I've heard and what I've understood, there are two understandings of this, is what I feel. So one is, this is in terms of what it is, what this verse does not mean and what it does mean, right? And we'll see the what it is not. So, I mean, I don't mean it is not worship and duty. I mean, within that concept of what it is not, there is the concept of worship and duty. So, whenever I have heard about this verse, I mean, when Prabhupada has quoted this verse, whenever I've heard this verse in the context of Prabhupada quoting this verse in Gita or in Bhagavatam or anywhere, I found out a few references to this verse. Prabhupada talks about this verse in terms of worship. He talks about this verse in the context of worshipping the absolute truth. So there is this concept of Ishtadevata, Ishtadev, or the higher God whom we repose our love to, right? So in that context, Prabhupada quotes this verse, Yathataror Mula Nishechanena. So there he says that how by worshipping the Supreme Lord, we'll have actually worshipped everyone. We'll have worshipped all the demigods, and because they are parts of Krishna, because they are actually acting on behalf of Krishna. So Prabhupada mentions this verse in the context of worshipping the Lord, in the context of reposing our loving tendency to the Lord. And then one might ask, no, but I have certain necessities that I need in my life. which I need to get from some demigod or whatever. Even in that case, Krishna says that, and this verse and Prabhupada say that whatever the demigods are offering is ultimately coming from Krishna. So, what is that verse in the Gita? I forget. But anyway, so there Krishna says that whatever the demigods are able to offer as benedictions to their worshippers, those things are actually given by me, Krishna is saying to Arjuna. So that is one aspect, right? So then that's why Krishna says, antavattu phalam desham tadbhavatya alpamedasam. Krishna is saying whatever you get from the demigods, it's all temporary, right? So I am the Supreme Lord, worship me with love, is what Krishna says. Now that is the worship part of it. And then there is the duty part. So we also have certain duties in life, right? Certain things that we have to do, we have to take care of the family, we have to do certain professional obligations that we have to do. Those are duties, right? So now those duties we have to do. We can't use this verse or use this concept of watering the root of the tree to run away from the duties that we have. So there is this thing, between worship and duty that is there. And yeah, worshipping Krishna as the root does not mean we are free of our duty in this world. So that is something that I was contemplating on. So that is, one understanding that, yes, we worship someone, we try to repose our devotion towards some deity, but then at the same time, we have certain duties in the world which we have to do. And then this verse, again, even most of the references where Prabhupada quotes this verse, they come in the context of demigod worship. Even in the verse itself, if we go to its translation, right, it says, simply worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead through devotional service automatically satisfies the demigods who are parts of Krishna. So, and even in the purport, I studied the purport, it never says that, if the Prabhupada never even, he doesn't even, to the least extent mention that, this does not mean that we don't have to do our duties. So there are certain things we have to do in the world, which are our duties, and to do justice to the role we are playing in the world, we have to do the duties. So that is one aspect, worship and duty. And now what it is, right? So this is again something that I had heard from Radhanath Maharaj, and something that Mataji also, she alluded to this, that worshipping Krishna includes worshipping everyone. Now, how is that, right? So Maharaj says that if we love Krishna, it does not negate everyone else. It actually includes everyone else. So there is a similar verse in the Bhagavatam, I think in the 11th canto. Devarshi bhutat nrinam pitrinam na kinkaro nayam rinicha rajan. Sarvatmana iha sharanam sharanyam gato mukundam pariritya kartu. So it says whatever obligations you have for Deva, Rishi, Bhuta, Deva is the demigods, Deva, Rishi are the sages, Bhuta are the, relatives, friends, Nrinam, the fellow human beings, and Pitrinam, the Pitras, ancestors. All of these obligations are not there for a person. Who is that person? All these obligations are not there for a person who has done Sarvatmanaya Sharanam Sharanyam, who has taken total shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For that kind of a person, none of these obligations hold, is what that verse says. But Maharaj says that, so when we water the root of the tree, or when we worship Krishna, it's not that we are neglecting everyone else. So, if like sometimes, I mean, I have had this mentality that, I'm worshipping Krishna, and then I don't have to respect anyone, or I don't have to, pay heed to anyone like that. Right? But then if we are thinking like that, that is not really worshipping Krishna properly. Because if we want to really genuinely worship Krishna, then we have to follow the Krishna's instructions about devotion, right? And one of the important qualifications of devotion is humility and gratitude, right? So that is what it means actually. When we worship Krishna, when we water the root of the tree, our devotion, our compassion, our love actually extends to everybody, because everybody is connected to Krishna. Every living entity is connected to Krishna. So like that, when we actually develop our love for Krishna, our respect and attitude for service will naturally extend to everyone. It doesn't negate everyone else. So it includes everyone else. So yeah, but at the same time, again, what Mataji mentioned, right? If we are watering the root of the, if we are not watering the root of the tree, if we are trying to engage with all these relations in the world, on their own merit, without Krishna being in the picture, then that is also again not doing justice, because that is again temporary, because ultimately that will be, that separation will occur at some point of time. So anyway, so that is what I had two things. And then actually worship and duty, right? It becomes a very, now sometimes devotees get into certain situations where they may have to do something to some worship to a demigod, right? To a demigod, and they may have to do certain specific things to as the nivaran, as the solution for what they are going through. But I was contemplating on that, and I feel that doesn't actually fall in the category of worship. That falls in the category of duty, because it's our duty to keep our body, properly, to keep our body healthy, because we want to engage in Krishna's service. So it's not the end goal of our activity. So I was thinking about that also, because one might say that, oh, there may be certain specific thing that we may want to get from a devata or a demigod. So again, that it's a very thin line. It ultimately comes down to what's going on in our heart, what's going on internally, and that way we have to see what's happening. So anyway, any thoughts on this? Any thoughts on this, dear devotees, before we move on to?
Very comprehensive, very nice, bro. Very practical also. Yeah.
Thank you, Mataji. Yeah. Yes. Any other thoughts, dear devotees, on this? Everyone is surprisingly quiet today. Anyway, maybe they are watering the root of the tree. Anyway, so the next verse that I wanted to discuss here is this. Dayaya sarvabhuteshu santushtya yena kena va sarvendriyo pashantya cha tushyatyashu janardanaha. So here three qualities are discussed. And what are those three qualities? By showing mercy to all living entities, being satisfied somehow or other, and restricting the senses from sense enjoyment, one can very quickly satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Janardhan. So this is what this verse says. Three things, right? By showing mercy to all living entities, by being satisfied somehow or the other, and restricting the senses from sense enjoyment. This is what will satisfy Krishna. So I was contemplating on this, and showing mercy to all living entities. Yes, this comes in so many places. Jivedoya is one of the three cardinal principles that Lord Chaitanya taught us: Jivedoya, Namruchi, and Vaishnav Seva. Right. So the showing mercy to all living entities comes in Jivedoya. Nirvairaha sarva bhuteshu. The 11.55 Bhagavad Gita. So many places Krishna says, having friendly relations with people around us, having mercy upon, compassion upon people around us. Now that is what will please him. And then restricting the senses from sense enjoyment. Again, Krishna says in the Gita that Tani sarvani sanyamya yukta asita matparaha vashehi yasyendriyani tasya pradnya pratishtita. So Krishna is saying in 2.61 that you restrict your senses, but don't just restrict them. You also engage them in my service. So that higher aspect is also there. And that way you can become tasya pradnya pratishtita. You can be situated in that state of pradnya pratishtha, or that state of equanimity, or that being elevated, transcending the material world. So this also is there, restricting the senses from sense enjoyment. Now I was contemplating on this second thing, being satisfied somehow or other. So this is again something very interesting, satisfied somehow or the other. I mean, I know that I've heard this somewhere, some self-help speaker saying that satisfaction is not just an emotion, satisfaction is also a choice, this person says. So this person says this in the context of, we think that, okay, if I get this, I will be satisfied. If I get that, I will feel satisfied. But then satisfaction is not just that. It's not a result of getting something. It can be a conscious choice that we make, right? But then this verse is saying somehow or the other be satisfied, right? Somehow or the other. So again, I wanted to open it up to others, right? How do we somehow remain satisfied, right? It is again this yena kenava, santushtya yena kenava. There is this other verse also there. Yena kena prakarena manah Krishna niveshayet. Somehow or the other engage your mind in Krishna. That verse yena kena, somehow or the other. So how do we somehow remain satisfied, right? So this is where we discuss sincere endeavor versus greed, right? When I'm endeavoring for something, how do I understand that? How do I understand remaining somehow satisfied? If I want to remain somehow satisfied, do I stop endeavoring, or what do I do, right? So what is that line between sincere endeavor and greed is what I want to open up with. So yes, anyone has any ideas on this?
Guruji, I have a follow-up question.
Yes, ma.
So how do you define satisfied? Like no anxiety? Like I had this question with your previous question as well. Like what would you call, like when are you satisfied? Like no anxiety. I won't say that you're happy, then you're satisfied, because happiness is not satisfaction. But exactly what is satisfaction for you?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I guess satisfaction is, on one level, it could mean that at least for the time being, I'm not hankering for it anymore. I'm not hankering for something anymore. At least for the time being, right? Yeah, I want something. I got it. Now I'm satisfied. At least for that temporary phase or whatever, right? That is one way you could say that you're satisfied, or yeah, that is one way I could think of satisfaction. And it is something very internal. No hankering, no anxiety is also one very important aspect of it. Yeah, thank you for that. Because when you really achieved what you wanted to achieve, and that achievement can be anything. It can be in terms of accomplishment, it can be in terms of certain thing within a relationship that we wanted to do, whatever that is. When that thing is accomplished, then we are like, okay, now I'm, at least for the time being, I don't have that anxiety. It might come back later after some time, but then at least for the time being, I don't have an anxiety. Yeah, maybe that is what, I don't know. I'm not sure if that's a complete definition, but yeah, we'll hear from others what they have to say. Vishal Prabhu, your hand is raised.
Yes, Prabhu. So I was thinking, like, to answer Nupur Mataji's question, I was just like, maybe I was thinking, if the result of your action is greater than or equal to your expectation, then that would mean satisfaction. So linking it to endeavor and greed, so the result, it is dependent on the amount of effort that you put in, and the greed is your expectation of the result. So either we put in a lot of effort or we decrease our expectation. That's how so like it's your there's two sticks, and then like you have to somehow bring them closer, and if the effort and your expectations match, then you're satisfied or somewhat satisfied. But like in case you don't put in enough effort, then like you're not close to your expected goal, or if your expectations are really high, that means you're being greedy about it, then even then you're unsatisfied. So that's what I was thinking.
Beautiful, Prabhu. Unrealistic versus realistic expectations. to whatever effort we put. Yeah, very nice, very nice. That draws like a nice line for sure. Yes, any other thoughts on this, dear devotees? What is sincere endeavor and what is greed? Yes, Mataji.
Yeah, so I think I mean, I loved what Vishal Prakash Prabhu said about the difference between the greed versus the satisfaction. I think to answer Nupur, I think I mean, this happiness versus satisfaction, that's the question, right? What's the difference? How do we know? I guess happiness, they say it's temporary, which means that it's in the moment feeling. I'm happy now, but next moment I may be sad. But this feeling of satisfaction, it's a little bit longer. Like for example, I may feel contented. I'm not necessarily happy. I'm contented with what I have. Like I aimed for 100. I got 70, but I'm satisfied. I aimed for 100. I got 100. I'm happy. But then the next moment, you realize that everybody else also got 100. Then happiness kind of dips. It's like that Three Idiots thing. So, but the satisfaction is that, okay, no matter what everybody else gets, happiness is kind of relative, is what I'm trying to say. But satisfaction is coming from within. Like, okay, and maybe the whole class got 100, but I'm satisfied with 70. Yeah. So, but how do we remain satisfied? Sincere endeavor. I think, yeah, I think by being grateful. I just reminded of the quote that we have in our living room. Contentment. How do we remain contented is just being by grateful that it does not happen because of my endeavor alone. There is a divine hand, and it could have been worse or it could have been better, but this is good for me, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, sincere endeavor. Okay, so about the endeavor, I always remember me asking the Chaitanya Charan Prabhu about endeavor versus greed or endeavor versus over endeavor. Yeah, he mentioned that when do you know you're over endeavoring for something is when it starts affecting the the sadhana or the seva, the service that we do. It comes like in the forefront that okay, I should do something about this. This issue, you're not able to set it aside. That is when you're over endeavoring. I think we are over endeavoring. That's what he said.
Yeah.
So if we end up just the right amount that's needed, and then we say, okay, after this point, I'm going to be detached about the result. I did my best. I'm going to detach, right? Then that is endeavor. Over endeavoring is, okay, that's not working. I'm going to try this. If this is not working, I'm going to try this. Like having A, plan B up till Z, not giving up.
Yeah.
There's something in the chat also. I think Lekha said something.
In my understanding, happiness is result oriented. If my result is good, I'm happy. Satisfaction is irrespective of the output. I openly accept the result. Yeah, nice way to put it. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Nitya Mataji. Thank you, Lekha Mataji. Very nice points, definitely. I also agree on that part where you said that, whether we are over endeavoring or whether it's a genuine effort, that one way to decide that is it affecting our sadhana in an adverse way? That is one metric that we could use. to understand if we need to take it down a notch or something like that. So yeah, I've often thought about these things when I was endeavoring for the promotion and whatnot. So at work and things like that. So even not just promotion, but even getting money, getting more money, buying a house, and so many things are there as a grihastha that we have to uh, do. So Manishika Mataji saying, silly thought, eating sweets makes me happy for some time, but satisfaction comes from knowing that I ate healthy all week and then I treated myself with sweets without guilt. Yeah, very nice. Yes, it's a profound one. Yeah, for sure. It's not silly. Do you want to elaborate on that, Mataji?
I don't know, Proji, how to elaborate, but the question that Nupur asked, I just had a thought about happiness and satisfaction related to the sweets or the thing that we both are facing nowadays. So
Mm,
yeah,
mm,
Yeah, that's a classic example, right? It makes you happy for that moment, but then immediately it's like, oh shoot, I had so much sweets. And it's not good for me, right?
mm.
Uh, but then yes,
yes, Mataji.
the real satisfaction is taking care of the root of the tree, root of this material tree, I guess, which is our health, and it gives us satisfaction, correct? Yeah.
Very nice, very nice.
Yeah, very, very nice point.
Okay. So yeah, any other thoughts on this, dear devotees? I don't have any more points to say here. There were many themes, but then these were like the primarily important ones that I thought we should discuss. So yes, any thoughts? Again, going to continue in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 seconds. Okay, cool. So thank you very much, dear devotees, and this completes the 4th canto. And I just wanted to express my gratitude to everyone who came forward to lead the sessions of this chapter, of this section. And these are all the wonderful devotees who did that. I mean, I had to put myself in there, because if I wouldn't have, then somebody would have texted me saying, "Arey Prabhuji, khud ko to nahi dala aapne, aapne bhi to kiya." So that is the reason I put myself there. But yeah, I am really grateful to all of you for coming forward and for coming forward and leading these discussions and taking us deeper into the Bhagavatam. And yeah, it just takes a lot of effort to go through a chapter and reflect on it. And yeah, it is nourishing to the person who is doing it 100%. But at the same time, it takes time, it takes some effort to gather everything and present. So I'm very grateful to all of you for that. And each of you bring in special perspectives, bring in special kinds of nourishment. So I'm, yeah, truly grateful for that. And we all are actually grateful to each other for this, for keeping this Tuesday Sangha going. And because, Bhagavatam is something that has the power to, uh, take away the Hridaya Granthi, the knot of attachment within the heart, right? Shranamatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridayantastho ya Badrani Vidhunoti Surutstam Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So like that, by hearing Bhagavatam regularly, by discussing Bhagavatam regularly, we are purifying ourselves and we are going closer to Krishna. So thank you very much, all of you who led the sessions in facilitating our journey of going closer to Krishna.
And
So
we also did some breakthrough in technologies, like Mentimeters, and
yes,
we also something else also we used. I forgot. Yeah, it was really nice way to get entertained and get philosophy at the same time.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I think Samaksh Prabhu was the forerunner, and then Ritesh Prabhu was taking it up. Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah, so yeah, that's all. This was a short chapter, and I just wanted to convey my gratitude to all of you. And so next week we will have our dear Gaurakumar Prabhu to lead us in a discussion. The topic we'll let you know the topic as we get closer to the day. But then yes, that is the next week, next Tuesday, that is the 17th. And then 24th December onwards, we will start the Samudra Manthan Leela. So the churning of the ocean, which is again a very, very beautiful section, and lot of lessons there. And yeah, really nice section. So again, I am looking forward to hearing from all of you in that section, hearing your perspectives, hearing your insights and realizations. So yeah, so that these are the updates. Any other announcements, Gaurakumar Prabhu, you want to make?
So tomorrow is Gita Jayanti.
Yes.
So if possible, please read Bhagavad Gita, whether it's one chapter, the Bhakti section from chapters 7 to 12, or the entire Gita, or anything. I think that is one way that we can reciprocate with what the Gita has given us, to read the Gita on the day of Gita Jayanti. Also, tomorrow evening is Yugal Kishore Prabhu. He's going to be at 22nd Avenue. So if possible and available, please join us. And yeah, that's about it. Thank you, Prabhus. Hare Krishna. Nupur has one thought.
One last thought, something that has been making feel satisfied lately is something Nitya Mataji once mentioned. Giving all your anxiety, fears, whatever to Krishna while paying obeisances. Yeah. Very beautiful thought. Yeah.
Yeah, that was from Radhika Raman Prabhu. Just like how Bali Maharaj did. Yes. Yeah. That feels good, right? When we do that.
That is very effective.
Whether, it's like, okay, I have all this, just you take it.
Yeah. And especially when you do it in the beginning of the day.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Just when you're offering obeisance. So what she means is, I don't know, I think I mentioned about this, I don't know what class, what was the topic, but what Radhika Raman Prabhu's Bali Maharaj's pastime he was mentioning. This is about prayers. He gave the class in ISV. I think Lekha was probably there also. That when we offer obeisances, uh, just like how Bali Maharaj did Atma Nivedan, he just offered his own head in prayer. Just take myself as, take over my mind, take over my whole being, and put your third step on my head, oh my Lord, like that. When we offer obeisances, we just say that I offer all my anxieties, all my fear, all my anger, lust, greed, everything unto your lotus feet, Krishna. That's it. And yeah, feels really good.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll try to do that as well. Yeah. So like you just say in your mind that
Yeah. Just when after we do the Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashabhutale, like that, right? And Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, and then just I offer all my, whatever you feel in that moment that is bothering you. It could be anger, lust, envy, greed, whatever. Or you can say all of these above. Just I offer it to you on your lotus feet. That's it.
Nice.
Yeah. It's very powerful, actually. Thank you, Nupur. I've been now doing mechanically, but I think tomorrow morning I'll think about it and do it. Once you get used to it, mind is like, puts in autopilot mode. All and more.
Yeah. All of the above and more that I didn't know about.
And everything, anything that
Yeah.
you see that I don't see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm,
Thank you for mentioning that, Mataji.
nice. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, dear devotees. We'll end here then. And just one last thing. There is Bhagavad Gita recitation on Friday at Bhakti Center starting at 4 p.m. We'll be reading the entire 18 chapters of the Gita, the Sanskrit. So I will be there. So if anyone is interested, you can join as well. Those who are nearby, and it's easy for you. But yeah, that is one thing that's happening as well. So
What
yeah,
is the time frame, Prabhu? Like I know it's 4 to 8:30 they say, but is there like an end time for the recitation? Like when does it end? Do you know?
it ends when, yeah, I mean, whenever all 18 chapters end, that's when it ends. And that's
Yeah.
approximately till 8:30. So that's
Okay, so that itself goes it. Okay, I thought there was some yajna after that or something. Okay.
that I'm not entirely sure. I'll have to check.
Yajna or Pushpanjali or something they said. Yeah, Pushpanjali.
Oh,
Okay.
interesting. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. But I won't be able to make it. I don't think we will be able to make it because of my class.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big regret for me.
Oh, no. It's not, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
This will happen every year. So that's there. So,
Yeah.
okay. So वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय।